Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of MJ Everyday, a dieting based episode for you guys today. How to push through bulking plateaus, or how to push through weight gain plateaus. So this is an episode for those of you who are trying to build muscle, trying to gain weight, trying to make gains in general. You've got yourself into caloric surplus. You've made good gains for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, whatever that period of time is. Then metabolic adaptation takes place and the gains stop. You hit a weight gain plateau. So I'm obviously going to throw back to episode 71 of MJ Everyday here, guys. The episode that I did on metabolic adaptation that is appearing on screen right now. So if you haven't watched that episode, definitely go back and check that out, because I explain in depth metabolic adaptation, why it happens, how it happens, so on and so forth. But this episode is specifically about how you use that knowledge of metabolic adaptation and apply it to a weight gain plateau or a bulking plateau, and what the steps are to push through that plateau. So let's say that you are in this position, you've hit this plateau, you were in sufficient caloric surplus, metabolic adaptation has happened. What do you do now? What are your next steps to push through this plateau? Guys, you have two choices at this point when you hit this weight gain or this bulking plateau. The first choice is to increase your caloric intake, so consume more calories. Your second choice is to decrease caloric output, so reduce the amount of exercise that you're doing. Let me address these one at a time. So first and foremost, increasing caloric intake, which is for the most part the path that most of us are going to take when we reach a bulking or a weight gain plateau, is just to eat more, just to increase caloric intake. So the logical question is, where do those calories come from? Do they come from protein? Should you increase your protein intake, or your carb intake, or your fat intake? Should you increase them all equally? I mean, what's the best way to do this? It really is an individual situation, guys, and it really depends on what your current macronutrient split is. But generally speaking, my advice is to increase your protein, your carbs, and your fats equally, so it's going to keep your macronutrient split the same in terms of percentage of calories coming from protein, percentage from carbs, and percentage of fat. So my advice generally is to increase your protein intake, your carb intake, and your fat intake equally to make up the excess calories that you require to push yourself back into that caloric surplus. It does vary individually because it depends on how sensitive you are to different macronutrients. So if you are, for example, a hard gainer and you know that you tolerate carbs very well, then you may make the choice to get all of the excess calories to push you further into caloric surplus from carbohydrates. On the other hand, if perhaps you're more of an endomorph or even a mesoendomorph, and you know that you don't tolerate carbs that well, you may choose to get the increase in calories from a combination of proteins and fats and keep your carbs exactly the same. So it really is an individual situation, but generally speaking, my general advice is to increase your caloric intake equally from proteins, carbs, and fats, and then make adjustments as your body adjusts from there. If you know you're sensitive to carbs, drop the carbs down. If you know your body works better with fats, drop the fats up. But equal increase is the general piece of advice I can give you. On the flip side, decreasing your caloric output, this is really going to apply to those of you who are doing a lot of cardio, an excessive amount of cardio, where perhaps you have the ability to decrease the amount of cardio that you're doing and therefore decrease your caloric output, so that you don't need to consume more calories to push you further into caloric surplus. You just need to decrease the amount of exercise, the amount of cardio that you're doing, and that's also going to have that net effect of pushing you further into caloric surplus. Either way, guys, the key here is to push through a bulking plateau, to push through a weight gain plateau. It's all about pushing through that metabolic adaptation, and the way that you do that is to push further into caloric surplus, and then further once again when metabolic adaptation takes place once again, and then so on and so forth. You can see where I'm going with this. Every single time you hit this bulking or weight gain plateau, the answer is increase caloric input, increase caloric intake, or decrease caloric output. Guys, that's a wrap for today's episode of MJ Everyday, how to push through bulking plateaus, how to push through weight gain plateaus. As always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn your post notifications on so you don't miss a beat when it comes to the MassiveJoes YouTube channel, and don't miss an episode of MJ Everyday. And you can do that both on your mobile, your cell phone, and your desktop PC. Until tomorrow, I'm coming to you from MassiveJoes.com. Stay